Hello, friends. You're listening to Orange Pulp. Zach, does that make you happy?
It makes me much happier, yes.
30 minutes that Jordan Spieth will have to remember for the rest of his life. We'll dive into that full action, history being made overall, but we're going to recap and do some housekeeping, the way the shows fell between going early before the Final Four and then now late. We got to look back, and UNC cruises against Syracuse. We'll get into that fully. Villanova dominates Oklahoma, and then let's just start with the national title game of what an incredible last 5 seconds.
The whole game was great, but the last 5 seconds will go down as 5 of the greatest seconds in college basketball history. Between that Marcus Page shot that he had no business making.
Yes, the Page shot will, I mean, that's the thing. The victors write the tale, or the victors write the history, or however it is. You'll never remember that shot. Page's shot will not go down because of what happened on the other end for Villanova.
Well, I think there's two ways to look at this. Those are two of the most amazing shots probably in basketball history, even beyond college, NBA, whatever have you. And you can't fault kids for not being able to defend those situations per se because, I mean, Page was guarded. I mean, he had to kind of, jerk around his man a little bit to get the shot up. But I am noticing one thing. When it comes to critical situations, either the coaching is bad or the playing is bad, where things just seem to happen like this more and more because when it comes to situations, players don't know what to do. They don't know how much time is on the clock. They don't know how many fouls there are. They don't, and is that not being communicated in the huddle? Is that not, happening enough? Are we not teaching kids how to play? Maybe it's that AAU culture. So it was amazing. It was exciting as a fan, but there seemed to be some coverage errors going on late in the game.
The big thing here, and we've all seen the video, just coaching reaction. And you talk about coaching, Tim, but being the idea of always in a coach frame of mind, and we saw that so much with Mr. Dove himself.
Mr. Smooth, Jay Wright.
Best dresser in the game.
Him or Coach Q?
In the men's game. In the men's game, it's got to be Jay Wright.
I mean, that's a situation where you can say, he's a good-looking guy. Always got the pinstripe suits going on.
I have no problem admitting that he is an attractive man.
He's a good-looking guy.
He is. He's kind of got like a little Clooney thing going, and he's aging quite well.
Yeah. Sort of getting the salt and pepper hair.
But being the Chris Jenkins, drilling the three, you see him just screaming for the ball, and how many times, even just at a pickup game, you see someone on the other side of the court yelling, give me the ball, and someone else shoots it, and then it's missed, and you see the hands go in the air, and just frustration of, oh, yeah, like you could actually done it. He calls for the ball, gets it, and then drills such an important three that just makes that an epic moment, and then it captivated what was a weird season with just an amazing ending because, let's be honest, the first two Final Four games between Oklahoma and Villanova and Syracuse and UNC were not good games. We'll get into Syracuse more as time goes on, but first we'll start with Villanova just dominating Oklahoma.
Well, Brian, I want to say something real quick about I want to make sure that I pronounce his name right. Ryan Archdiacono. That has got to be one of the most difficult names to pronounce.
Even more than Star Latulele.
But
you're from down south. You don't see those names too much.
You're right. We don't really. But it was just such
Isn't that an Italian name too?
It's got to be.
You don't have a lot of Italians down there in North Carolina.
I know like one Italian. But I mean, it was such a smart play by him. He's bringing the ball up the court. He ends up winning Final Four Most Outstanding Player. But then to know that Chris Jenkins is trailing behind him and just throw it up over his shoulder, Jenkins catches it, nails the three. For Archdiacono, got it right.
They just kind of call him Archie.
Archie.
They just kind of leave it at that, so you can do that.
Question. Without looking at your iPad, can you spell it?
No. No, I cannot. But, I mean... but he was such a pivotal reason for all of Villanova's success this season. That for him to be willing to give up that final shot just says so much about him as a player.
I think it does, but I also think, too, Jay Wright said that they practice that, and a lot of people would say, oh, yeah, what are you just saying that? But a lot of teams do. They kind of put, time on the clock at their practices, and they put these situational stuff in, and they might do it more like sometimes a shoot-around just to have fun versus an actual practice. So he probably felt comfortable in that situation to either take the shot or pass it, and obviously he passed it.
And then obviously Jenkins, we know he's a big guy, but he's the big guy who shoots threes. So in that situation, he definitely improved his game and came to Villanova. He was just so big that it almost looked like he wasn't going to play because he was just too heavy, and the amount of weight he had to lose, and then it cultivating with him winning the title, and then Villanova getting over that hump of losing to teams that they shouldn't have lost to, which is something that's always stuck with that program. And now to say they are national titles and national title winners, and we'll talk more about Wright going possibly to the NBA and everything later on, and you're having fun.
I've got one thing that I can say. The last team to beat Villanova in the NCAA tournament is still North Carolina State.
Well, after this season, you have to have something.
We have to have something to brag about.
Because this year was, you had one word Wolfpack.
Yep.
But now, doubling back and looking back at Villanova's dominating win over Oklahoma.
Literally doubling back because we're doubling the amount of teams we're talking about.
Yes.
That's right.
Villanova, as I said before, just absolutely demolished Oklahoma, and this really wasn't even a compelling game, and you thought Buddy Hield, maybe he could do something to get them back into it, and then the game coming out of the first half, okay, Villanova up a ton, going to halftime, Buddy Hield comes out, looks like Oklahoma's almost got type of run, and then it just snaps on a dime, and Villanova back and off to the races they go.
Well, it's great coaching again, but it's also the style of play for Villanova. They've, even though the Big East has become a new conference in the last few years, they have not stopped the classic Big East style of hard-nosed basketball, defense, rebounding, athleticism, those kind of things. And I think other teams throughout the year, I don't know, maybe in their coaching situations, they're like, we're just going to really focus on what we do well. And if that affects Buddy Hield, great. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. Well, guess what? Every game Buddy Hield looked like a pro. And then against Villanova, he didn't.
I want to just take a small detour because I saw a headline that just screamed clickbait, but I clicked on it anyway and actually read it, and it felt like someone was trying to do something with it, and it was, Steph Curry is the reason why you should draft Buddy Hield. Really? We're here?
Well, they're not the same player. I mean, certainly Hield does have great range. He's proven that.
Yes.
College three's in a little bit. But I actually equate Buddy Hield, and he may or may not develop this way, to more of a Dwayne Wade kind of player. It's not that
I don't think he'll be as good defensively.
Maybe not, and you're right about that. But, Curry is a shooter. Can he get to the basket and make some... Yes, he totally can do that. Buddy Hield is a scorer who can shoot well. So it's kind of like it's a difference in how they present their games.
But also, Curry has the sickest handle in the game, can get to the basket and so well. And yes, I think...
Well, Hield's not a point guard either, so he doesn't have to have that crazy handle. So
Hield will score. I just don't think he'll be great, if you know what I mean.
Well, some guys are great college players, and then they just translate into serviceable NBA players. But, we'll see. The right team, the right system. Right.
The dude could score in
college. Oh, yes.
And, now he's averaging a very respectable 15, 17 points a game.
And I could see Buddy Hield doing something
But it's taken him 10 years to get there.
Well, it was, his third or fourth year in the playoffs with the
Orlando,
Magic when he just had that open 20, and then it started off from there. But it took him up to that point, and then once you saw that in the playoffs, you realized, oh, he can actually do something. That was in the Dwight years when they just surrounded him by shooters. But, yeah, I can see Hield turning into something like that.
Philosophy.
Well, now they don't have shooters, and they don't have a big man, and the fans of Orlando don't want Dwight back.
And that's how you end up with the third worst record in the conference. So, yeah.
But now on the Syracuse side of things, there's a lot we could talk about in this game, but UNC just proved that they're the better side. And it's the third time they've played them this season, and it's the third time they've won. One thing I think that doesn't get enough talk about and enough run was the free throw shooting in this game, especially Syracuse missing the front end of the one-on-one 3 different times, which is missing 6 free throws instead of just 3.
Brian, you're a New Yorker, though. You're not 8 years old, so you've been around Syracuse basketball on television and stuff. Were you shocked?
No, I was not surprised.
I mean, that's
at all.
a historical thing. Like, let's miss free throws at critical times.
But
so.
I just think that makes it such a pivotal point of this game. If they knock down, they went so poor from the free throw line that
it was definitely a critical point. But I mean, just sitting there as someone who's watched Syracuse over the years, I'm not saying they don't value free throws in practice. I'm sure they shoot them just as much as anybody else. But there's something about when you put on that uniform at Syracuse.
Well, the
only
year that
certain
they won
guys
the title,
sift
Carmelo
through.
and
Jerry
McNamara, they went so beautiful from the line.
Yeah.
It was such an important thing, and then that was such a critical in their run was, I think if I remember correctly, 18 and 19 off the top of my head against Kansas for between the two of them. So that was so important. But apart from that title-winning year, you're right. It's not a great thing.
It's a cursed thing. I don't know what it is because they have some good shooters. You know, Cooney's a good shooter. Benajay's a good shooter. They got guys that can shoot it, and then they get to the line, and it's like it just doesn't happen.
But I think that Tim said something there. Cooney is a good shooter.
Especially around the curl.
Benajay is a good shooter.
Right.
Malachi, good scorer. They don't have that great player.
Yes.
They didn't have that great player this year that you have to have in the college game really to deliver that national championship.
You're listening to Orange Pulp. Now, a quick little bringing up Malachi. Malachi wants nothing to do with answering this question, but we had it in the talk about when they were playing Virginia. Does Malachi go pro? And with the game he had against Virginia and then them making it to the Final Four and him having a good, very respectable freshman year, it almost screams like Tyler Ennis again, where it's you go pro because you almost have to go pro.
Well, the rules have changed though this year where they can go into the whole
longer.
process and not have the agent. So I think you'll see Malachi milk the situation, but then he won't. It sounds to me in a recent interview I heard, who's the recruit coming in next year? Is it Tyus Battle? They have some prior relationship through AAU or high school playing against each other or something from the New Jersey area.
Is there any relationship to the Battle from Penn State?
I don't have any idea about that.
That was just a thing that just randomly popped in my head.
No, that kid's from Albany, but I don't know if there's a cousin situation or not. But
he's from Albany?
Yeah.
So he could go to Penn State, but he couldn't come to Syracuse?
They struggle recruiting some of those kids sometimes.
Why couldn't he become a Great Dane?
Good question.
Well, he went to Penn State, that's why.
Good question. So I think he'll go through that process and kind of see where his status is, do some workouts. And unfortunately now those things will be so public, so you won't be able to get away from the media without them asking you those questions. But I don't think he goes in the end.
I think he tests it, doesn't hire an agent, ultimately comes back. Because, I mean, Jim Boeheim, he's going to tell him what's best for him, but you've got to imagine he's still going to tell him what's best for Syracuse as well.
And Jim.
And with a whole new backcourt, he's going to be the guy next year. So would you want an extra year where you could be the guy and be like a definite lottery pick versus go in and be like, well, maybe the 20th pick or the 15th pick or
even projections now show him no higher than second round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
he would have to have an amazing combine that nobody goes to anymore. He would have to have amazing workouts.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I think he'll come back too, but I think he stays for a sophomore year and then he goes.
Probably.
But I think he's a 2-year and then gone where but I could make the case and I could see it where he goes in one. I just think it'd be better for him long term. It'd definitely be better for Syracuse if he stays that second year.
Well, and he has to look at some of his predecessors at Syracuse. Ennis has had no career. I think I saw a tweet or something online that said that Chris McCullough finally played his first game for Syracuse over the weekend played his first game for the Nets over the weekend after being out a whole year with ACL tear. And Michael Carter.
It was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but he hadn't been on the Nets. He hadn't done anything all year because he couldn't play because he was hurt. And then, Michael Carter-Williams did get the Rookie of the Year. I won't take that away from him.
In a flawed system, but yes.
Yeah, and really, he's done okay on Milwaukee, but we haven't heard too much. So, if you're not ready, don't go.
Coming up next, talk about women's, their historic year. UConn is just that good. and
Yona.
Yona. I don't know why we're
Telling
going
you
with
to
Yona.
pump the energy into this, Brian. It's exciting. The women made history this year.
Well, no. The ending does put a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth. This is Orange Pulp. You're listening to Orange Pulp now, talking about Syracuse's historic year. Was that good enough for you?
That was better.
Okay.
I'll let you know when you get there, though.
Yeah, we'll get right on that one. But Syracuse making it to the final game before getting run off the court by former local Syracuse player and the rest of UConn and Gino Aranema. UConn is just that good, and back-to-back national titles. Their play will come back a little bit to earth because of all the graduating seniors that they have, but they were clearly, from the tip, the better team, and it almost looked like Syracuse could go a quarter without scoring.
They almost did. Twice.
But I think you have to look at things, too. You know, how many teams throughout the year, I mean, moral victories, no coach. Coach Q definitely doesn't want to hear about moral victories, but had a 16-0 run or 16-2 run against UConn. I mean, they definitely got
When
tested.
it was 30 points.
But it doesn't matter, though. They definitely got
starters were
tested.
out.
And we all knew Syracuse would test them. We didn't say they would beat them.
Yeah.
I mean, we even thought maybe 20, 25 points would be a nice
Over 30.
route, and it was 31, right?
Yep, I said
31.
over 30.
So, of all the teams that played them so competitively as they did, I think Syracuse has a lot to be proud of. I mean, again, no coach is going to take a moral victory. The players aren't going to take it either, but it's a lot to be proud of in that performance.
Oh, definitely. But the question I have here is, yes, this year is great, and you can talk about it, but that rolls into not taking anything away from this year, but they graduate so much. We talk about UConn coming back to the table a little bit. They're still going to be UConn. They're still going to be one of the most premier programs. Syracuse graduates a lot of their scoring.
Yeah, they do. But they have a 5-star recruit that just signed the other day. She's coming in.
Peterson's back.
Peterson's back. That's huge because she's the heart and soul of that team.
And then will Sykes be back?
Sykes has announced that she's going to be back.
Oh, she is. She can play her
she's
fifth
official.
year.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, when you look at it, they're losing Brianna Butler. They're losing... it's losing, talking about...
Yeah.
Syracuse.
Isn't
it? An orange.
The orange.
The orange.
Orange.
The orange is losing...
If you're listening in Long Island, we're talking about the orange right now. So.
They're losing Brianna Butler, Maggie Morrison, and...
The Day twins.
They're
Yeah.
juniors.
Oh, they're
I
Day
thought
twins or juniors?
The Day sisters
Are they
are
redshirts?
juniors. No.
Huh. I thought they were... Okay, well, that...
And I think it's either Taylor Ford or Cornelia Fondren. I can't remember which one.
I think Ford, but I think it's both
Ford.
of them. Is Fondren a senior too? This is terrible radio. I just want to put out that we do not have this off the top of our head.
I don't know. Tim's looking up.
I was
the
going to say
roster
Tim
I'm
right
just
usually
looking it
has
up.
this.
I want to make sure.
now. No, don't test
No,
me.
you're right about the Day. Yeah, they're both going to be back, and you might see maybe
My
Bria
fellow North
Day.
Carolinians, I have to follow them.
You might see Bria Day even with a stronger role next year.
Yes,
You know,
I can
just
tell.
to
Because
assist in
there's
that.
And she got some run in the tournament, especially when her sister got into
In
foul
foul,
trouble.
yeah.
And she didn't do badly, especially against the Gamecocks.
Slim's going to be back next year, and think about those little minutes that Slim had against Tennessee that were critical,
Yeah.
Yes.
and against Washington.
Because
So
she can spell somebody a few minutes here and there.
yeah,
Well, which is
She
so
can
weird
get the
for
start
a
every
starter.
night. She can get the start every night, knock down a 3 to open the game. Because how many games did we see that's exactly what happened?
She starts a game, knocks down a 3, gets subbed out, and then you see her for 5 minutes for the rest of the game.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird little system that they have worked out. But apparently there's something about it that works.
Well, clearly Coach Q has got this program rolling, and obviously success breeds success. There's a reason why UConn will still be great next year. There's a reason why Notre Dame, even though Skylar Diggins left a few years ago, is still the closest Notre Dame or UConn came to a loss with only a 10-point win over Notre Dame. There's a reason why Gamecocks are always up there. Tennessee's having a little bit of a down run. They'll come back up. Your perennial powers, success breeds success. And if Syracuse can have this success because they turned this program completely around, think about 10 years ago Coach Q gets here and this program is just a mess. And now you're seeing them, girls are seeing them on national television. They're saying, hey, we can get them over the line. And maybe had this happened when when Stewart was going to UConn, maybe you could have recruited the hometown girl. There might have been more of a push of, hey, you can get us over the line for a national title. If there's something like that, you can go and you can have point to, hey, we're here, get us just over that line. It's something that can work with that, just on the future play of things.
Yeah, this is going to explode recruiting. It's going to explode interest. I know places don't do this at the Division I level, but I think one thing that could be great, and TV screws it up, but if Syracuse was to ever play, an afternoon game, mid-afternoon, and the women played like 3 hours before, and people were somehow able to get tickets for both. I know they'll never do this, but I'm saying that would be an awesome way to continue the capitalization on this great, moment that they had this year. But I think you'll see more fans
that
next
was my
year.
question is, do you see more fans?
It might not be a massive jump. It might only be a few hundred each game, but just that extra few hundred leads to more, and,
But, I mean, it's sort of one of those things. You never hear... I mean, I'd sit around this year, I'd talk about the women's basketball team, and there'd be like one or two people that was able to talk about it with me. As soon as they have this success in the tournament, everybody's like, oh, well, the women's team, they're amazing. They're great.
They're going to beat UConn.
Okay, Leslie.
Yes. There was a person in our class who was defiant.
You can go ahead and say Michael Carter. He doesn't listen, so it's
fine. Who was defiant and about UConn was going to lose to Syracuse. And unfortunately, we were in class, so we didn't have time to ask him to name 3 players on Syracuse's team. And when UConn won by 30, I looked at him and said, so, great about that Syracuse win, right? He goes, I had nothing to lose. If they win, I look like a genius. Or, not.
You look like a homer.
Screaming homer. There was our personal vendetta moment of the show. But, continue on.
Yeah, I got to continue on here.
That's fine.
Play on situation. We make lists, we rank players and stuff like that. But I started thinking, and it's hard to do, but great college players, female players of all time. If she's not on that all-time team,
Stewart's definitely on that.
Stewart has to be.
Tarazi's on there for sure. Cheryl Miller, obviously at USC.
Rebecca
Lobo probably at the post position. Although and I shouldn't be blanking on Brittany Griner. You got to give that look there.
To at least
she probably was a better player than Lobo. Overall.
But I'm just saying players who are on the.
And of course Maya Moore. So UConn makes up the
Skylar
most.
Diggins
and Skylar Diggins, you may be like if you get 6 players and you have someone off the bench. So she cemented herself as a great college player. We'll see how it translates on the pro level. The WNBA game, I think what she's going to have to do is play here and play in Europe because that's how they're doing it now. The women are playing 2 seasons back-to-back. And
they play year-round.
Yeah, she's going to be sought after in Europe, no question about it. They pay a lot of money over there. So, good for her. And she's been a humble, good kid. She hasn't really done anything stupid, so I wish the best for her.
Is it crazy that I just found out, and maybe I'm the only one, but I had no idea that you were not allowed to leave early, period, from women's college basketball?
Well,
you have to stay.
Yeah.
I had.
Well, Sykes could have because you have to be there 4 academic years. Whether you play or not.
I didn't realize. I just thought it was staying because that was the culture. Like years ago in college basketball, you stayed. I mean, how many players? It was ruled as Jordan's leaving early after 3 years.
Well, I think the rule is in place not so much for like we shouldn't allow women to take that leap like men do. I think it's an empowerment thing. Like you're going to go there, you're going to have a great career, you're going to get an education. It seems like there's more value on the whole person that the female athlete's going to become. Whereas I hate to say it, on the male side, that's not really stressed. But it is on the female side.
You're right. On the men's side, it's you've got talent. Yeah, go on to the NBA. Yeah. That's fine. Well, then going a little bit off. There's this guy Thon Maker. I don't know if you guys have heard about him.
Before,
Yep.
He's like 7'2".
Yeah.
He's like 7'2", crazy athletic. Played in Canada.
And he's 19.
So he fits that requirement that he has to be 19. but he's arguing that he could have graduated last year, but he stayed.
Well, they have 13th grade in some places in Canada too.
So I mean, it's like one of those weird little.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out if he can enter the NBA draft like he wants to.
Right.
The other thing, I almost see him, if he can't enter the NBA, I don't see him going to college. I see him playing a year over in Europe.
That's what some of these guys done and proved it. I mean, I think Moutier's probably had a better season with Denver, even though I don't follow him that much, because he went and played. I think he played in China. For a year. So some of those guys, it benefits. I don't know how it translates in the women's game though. If someone were to leave early.
Was it Jennings who went?
I always thought Jennings played in Greece. I thought that was the thing with
Greece.
him.
Yeah.
And then he,
and then came over here, had a huge first game, and then it slowly disappeared.
Yeah.
But Thonmaker, saw him play in person. He's crazy good.
How did you see him in person?
He played at the highschoolot.com Holiday Invitational 2 years ago. It was him. It was him against Harry Giles, and he's going to Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. That was some of the most, I'm not going to say good basketball, because it was a lot of high-flying dunks.
Crazy athleticism.
But it was crazy athleticism. It was incredible to watch.
Well, now to get back to trains back on the rail, because that was a fun little detour, but what do you see for Syracuse next year?
I mean, it's going to be like a minor rebuilding process. Because you lose that, I don't even want to say go-to scorer, but that person that people expect to be taking all of the shots.
And wasn't afraid to shoot. So you've got to find somebody that has no problem jacking the threes, because that's the way that Syracuse likes to play. And Coach Q has no problem giving the green light to anyone.
No, 53s a game. If 53s a game, we're going to shoot it.
I understood all those words.
I do think we talked earlier, probably the women's rankings are more credible than the men's, especially coaches' polls, different things like that. If the women aren't a preseason top 15 or maybe even around a 10 team, then there's something wrong, because I think they'll probably get that ranking to start the season. And, of course, again, Notre Dame's still going to be the class of the ACC, no question, but they got to be scared now. The way Syracuse played them in that tournament championship game, they're in the class of the ACC.
You're listening to Orange Pulp. Coming up, 30 minutes that Jordan Spieth will have to live with for the rest of his life, and a putt and just 2 shots in the water that we will never forget, and a story of the Masters champion that we will not forget. This is Orange Pulp. You're listening to Orange Pulp, and hello, friends. This is Augusta National.
A tradition unlike any other.
And hello, friends. This is Augusta National. A tradition unlike any other. I could do this.
You could. Just talk about the
azaleas, and Amen's Corner.
And remember, as a broadcaster, you must say patrons. The fans have to be called patrons. In fact, a few years back, it was either Scott Van Pelt or Mike Tirico, when ESPN first started covering the first couple rounds, who made a little blip mistake, and they didn't threaten to fire them or anything like that, but it was definitely talked about. You have to say patrons.
You know, can I just say something? Because I watched...
Are we going to rail on the Masters real quick?
We could. If we
could.
I don't mind doing that.
But I mean, this is going to be praising somebody. Mike Tirico. He is so good because,
he's gotten really good over the years.
Because, I mean, like, even this year, I was listening to him doing some of the Masters coverage, and I was like, you know, I'm not the biggest golf fan in the world, but you're making me interested.
Tirico is phenomenal at so many things. And yes, he's a Syracuse grad, but I thought he was phenomenal before I decided that I wanted to come to Syracuse and came to Syracuse. And just seeing the prep work he does, but when I heard the story of him trying to cover the World Cup, which he's not in soccer every day, and just the massive binders that he would just open to study, it's just fantastic. And then he just has a way of drawing you in, and there's a reason why he is Monday Night Football. But, and then
one more thing, too. I don't know if you knew. I might have said this to you. But when you see the fans sitting in these folded chairs, there's an honor system at Augusta.
Yes, Tim.
Where when you run in at the beginning, when the gates open, well, they don't let you run in. You can speed walk on the grass. You get to your spot and you leave your chair, and that's your chair. And no one is allowed to come in and take your seat. So, like on some of those
I'm very glad about that.
I don't know about the grandstand pieces, but like behind some of the par threes, like the one on Amen Corner, I think it's like 12 or 13. Everyone's seat is just placed there. And it is what it is. So
Yeah, I mean, that I don't see how that flies.
this is called etiquette.
Yes.
Rich white people etiquette. That's right. I said it. I'm not in that class. I'm not part of that class. There may be 3 white people in here having this show, but I am just not in that demographic.
I'm
sorry.
not touching that topic.
You can touch it. I'll touch it. I just did. I punched it.
I don't know why you just counted that down, Brian. We're leaving that in there.
Why?
Okay.
It is. I mean, think about it, though.
I'm
Seriously,
rooting for-
the average golf fan,
Yes.
and I'm a golf player and a fan, although I'm not, certainly, but the people that can go to that can afford it. You know how many, the price
yes,
of
the
tickets are
absurd is
ungodly.
absurd, yes.
So, it's a different world, boys.
Okay, so Jordan Spieth led after
65 holes.
yes.
He
And-
had the 65-hole lead. He had led wire to wire
2 years in a row.
for 2 consecutive Masters.
7 consecutive rounds in the lead.
And the big thing here is he did not play particularly well throughout the entire Masters. He putted amazing, but he was spraying it all over the course.
The conditions were really tough this year. They were extra windy.
Yes.
The first 3 days. But
I mean,
the
a
fact
couple
that-
years ago when Adam Scott won by +1, but last year the conditions were perfect, and he
Right.
won by -1,000 basically because he just blew everyone out of the water.
But people forget, though, there was a lot of comparisons, obviously, to Tiger, whether he's going to break the record of Jack Nicklaus. If you look at Nicklaus's overall record, the amount of majors he won and the amount of times he finished second, I don't have the number for that, but it was pretty high, too. So maybe this is how it'll be. It'll always be remembered for a collapse, but maybe this will be one of those things where Spieth ends up winning, because I think he's got the moxie to win 10 or more.
Oh, yes.
That this will be one of those second-place finishes.
He's 22, and remember how they were always talking about how Smiley was the partner next with him, how young in his first, and how well he's doing it? He was 2 years older than Spieth. So just talking about how amazing Jordan is, and I mean, he took second in his first time at Augusta, won the second time he was at Augusta, and then should have won had he not done a horrible decision on the 12th and then put it in the water and then just plain out chunked the second one into the water and quadruple bogeyed. And you saw there was start of it of 10 he had a bogey, 11 he had a bogey, and 12 obviously was the quadruple bogey. But you thought if he makes it through 10, 11, and 12 at +1, he's just going to coast through the rest. And anything but that happened. But then what was really incredible to me is he birdied 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came back with like 2 out of 3 next holes were birdies, I think.
16, he had the birdie chance, but that was a really tough putt going downhill. And then you saw he just barely tapped it, and it just kept rolling. But those were putts he was making throughout the rest of the tournament. And then Nick Faldo made a perfect point of it when on the 18th when it realized this is over, he can't win. And it was, you can spray it around the yard in the front 9. You can't do it on the back 9 because you can scramble around and save par or birdie like he was doing so many times with great putting, but you can't do that on the back 9 of Augusta, especially on the last in the last 18 on Sunday, because it's just the course is set up and the whole location is so prestige, and then the water is so important. And you just see it where you can't spray it around, but he was escaping and was still up 5, even though he didn't play particularly well outside of his putting game.
Well, 12's an interesting hole, too, because when you're facing from the tee, it's, horizontal or perpendicular to you, actually.
Yes.
But, I mean, it's a horizontal, basically kind of like green. And to my knowledge, I don't think there's a drop area if you put it in the water at 12. You have a choice of if you want to re-tee or how far you want to go back. So there's ridiculous strategy if you put it in the water, because now it's like, okay, well, what club do I really hit best from 70 feet, or what do I hit from 80 feet?
And then he just plain out
right,
chunked
and he
it.
chunked it. So if there was a drop area that was closer even to the water and you knew you just had to get over it and it was designated, you got to use it, he maybe comes out of there with a bogey at worst. But then, he brought it back to his comfortable distance, and it turned out to be uncomfortable. So...
The other big thing is this tournament will always be remembered as the one that Jordan Spieth lost rather than the one that Danny Willett won. But he becomes only the second Englishman to win, and Nick Faldo being the first, winning 3, correct?
He won 3 total, yeah.
But we didn't even know he was going to be playing. He was the last one in. His birth of his child was supposed to be yesterday, but instead of having the birth of his child is born a week earlier, so he gets the green light to go, and he ends up winning a green jacket. Which, how awkward was that Spieth is putting it on him, just thinking, this should have been mine.
I don't know what you think, Zach, but should we maybe, they won't listen to us, but should we maybe get in contact with Augusta and say, that's a tradition, maybe we should get rid of that one. Maybe Billy Payne should just put the jacket on.
I still like it.
I like it, too.
I like it, but it is the most awkward moment in sports when you collapse like that.
I agree. It's the most awkward moment in sports, even if you don't collapse like that.
Yeah.
Well, even because But Bubba Watson, when he lost, he was out at the weekend. He didn't even make the cut. Okay, that's going to happen. You're putting it on. You're there for the weekend, for the festivities, just because you're putting the jacket on someone. But for this moment where you're thinking, no one's going to be having to put this jacket on because it's going on me again. And when thinking that's going to be what's happening, to this, just the picture of him in the background, and he's doing the golf etiquette thing because you don't criticize anyone. That's the gentleman etiquette of the sport. But just what must be going through your mind, even with the maturity beyond his years, of putting the jacket on and just thinking of that quadruple bogey.
Oh, yeah. He's kicking himself. But I think that Jordan Spieth is one of those people, he appreciates the game so much that he had no problem doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do it twice.
Yes, because
they do it in Butler Cabin, but then they have the outside ceremony afterwards, and you have to redo the whole thing.
It's also they take the jacket back, too. It's not their jacket to keep.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like a fake coat
you
size for when you come back.
Other people who are similar build take their jacket and then you get the actual jacket a few weeks later.
Right. And then you have to wear it to the Champions Day.
I would wear it
everywhere.
Well, you can, I think, to some degree.
Spieth wore it everywhere.
Spieth wore it a lot of places. But
I'd have been like, won the Masters. It's no big deal.
My question, which would you take to more places? Now, it'd be easier to wear the jacket, but would you rather take the Stanley Cup to more places on the one day you had it?
Well, you only get it for one day.
Because it's mine, and I won it by myself. There was no team that carried me to this Stanley Cup that I won as the third-string goalie.
And another tidbit on that ceremony at the end, I don't know if you guys noticed, but the low AM was Bryson DeChambeau, who actually is really good, and he's turning pro next week, or this coming week, actually, at Hilton Head, where they give you a plaid jacket if you win at Hilton Head. But I remember Nance was asking him how he felt about it, and he's a real cocky kid as it begins anyways, and he said something to the effect, well, yeah, I've played well, I thought, but I really can't wait to play this week, so I finally get a check. And it just kind of was like this weird transition into then, okay, now we're going to put the jacket on Danny Willett. We're also not going to ask Jordan Spieth any questions. Like, Jordan, how do you feel about Danny winning? Or, they totally eliminated that. And it was just this weird, the whole thing was weird.
It was really weird.
Yeah. And then when they gave him the jacket, like, you had this juxtaposed situation where you had Billy Payne shaking hands with Danny Willett, and it was like a triangle, and Jordan Spieth's head was like still in the triangle, trying to like get out of the way, but he didn't know what to do because he was frozen after that. So,
now on your rundown, Zach, you have it. What is it about the Masters? And I think this answers the question right there. Because something like this can happen. It's not likely to happen, but it can happen. And when you talk about the beautiful course, the landscape on its own, you get the crazy greens where it's almost a bad shot or a good shot that's off by a quarter of an inch can end up being a bad shot. And you can see where just the unwritable happened. And one hole can't win you a tournament, but it certainly can lose it. And I think that's what it is for the Masters.
You could argue that about every golf tournament, but I think what it is about the Masters,
first major as well.
It's the first major, yeah. It's the history that goes into it. Mm-hmm. It's the green jacket.
Everything's green.
Everything's green there, yeah.
Doesn't it look almost like if you go on a vacation in like a rich neighborhood and they just have the fake good AstroTurf grass?
Literally.
Here we go back to the rich, and you've now not only offended the rich, you've offended the Brady Bunch because they had an AstroTurf yard in their house. They used to rake leaves on it. It was weird.
But getting back to my more sentimental point, it's the green jacket. It's the history. It's the honor of winning at Augusta. It's the pageantry that goes into it.
The par 3.
The par 3 contest, yes.
I do want to say a sad thing, though. This year, of course, Jack and Gary Player Gary Player had a hole-in-one in the par 3, by the way.
Look at that.
But Arnie...
I'm actually sad I didn't get to watch it this year.
Arnie is old. And obviously, he's in his 80s.
Yes.
Gary's in his 80s, too, but in great shape.
He's in phenomenal shape.
And Jack's a little bit younger, I think, in his mid to late 70s. But Arnie had to be helped up out of a seat to do that, opening drive, per se. And, you kind of wonder if they might say to him, obviously we want you here. You're going to come to the Champions Dinner. But Tom Watson played his last Masters, and I wonder if Tom Watson becomes the third guy. He's still very competitive on the Champions. It's not like he's going to run away and not play any more tournaments. But I wonder who that new guy is going to be, because after a while you can't keep dragging Arnie out there.
I can see Tom Watson. That makes a lot of sense.
So,
you're listening to Orange Pulp. Coming up next, the NBA winding down. The Warriors have done something historic. The Spurs' undefeated home record is gone, and a topic about LeBron taking a backseat to the Warriors, I think it's so, and we'll understand why. Maybe that's the tweeting game by LBJ. This is Orange Pulp. This is Orange Pulp. Now with the NBA season, the Warriors are just one win away. Apparently I cannot talk anymore. From breaking the Bulls record from 95-96. And do you think they can do it? Obviously they can. Do you think they will?
Yes, they will.
It's there now. They're going for the throat, and they already beat Memphis in their second to last game in Memphis. That
was such a difficult game for them to win.
Yeah.
And them playing at the Oracle.
It's
already in the bag.
The only thing against them outside of the pressure of just breaking the record is they have lost some home games recently. They lost to Boston. They lost to Minnesota.
That's just them being bored.
I know. I agree.
There's no way they come out and win this.
But so that's what I'm saying. It's so much on the periphery, like, we have lost a couple home games. But like I said with my first point, is that they're going for the throat right now. If you have it in your hands, you're not going to screw it up at this point.
Steve Kerr doesn't want to tie his own record.
No.
He wants to break his own record.
Speaking of Steve Kerr, how similar are these two teams to the Bulls and this year's Golden State Warriors? Looking at it, Kerr obviously played for the first. They are very similar.
They are, but there's some stark differences, and these would be the ones I would say. Not from the guard position, not from the center position, because you could put Andrew Bogut on the same level with Bill Cartwright, Luke Longley,
both from Australia.
Will Purdue.
You have
no, he's a little better than Will Purdue.
Scorers who are not fantastic down, very limited, talented players, but limited down low. I mean, you have the guard position where 50 points between Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan, 50 points between Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. The second player in that listing could be a number one at about half the teams, if not 2/3, but they're happy where they are right now. Then you have Dennis Rodman being the vocal rebounding machine. That's Draymond Green, vocal rebounding machine.
Well, and the thing, too, I mean, people forget that at one time Rodman was a decent offensive player with Detroit, and then he just said, I'm not going to be an offensive player anymore. That's where Green is both. But I think that
he's a triple-double machine is what he is.
From a defensive standpoint, and they are a great defensive team, which is what Golden State is.
They don't have
individual defensive
the
players.
Pippen Jordan lockdown.
But what I'm saying is the team, there are crazy similarities, just because I saw the Kerr thing, and I went, yeah, okay, Kerr played for them, Kerr coaches them. I wonder if that's the only thing they have in common. And I just started looking through.
Well, Kerr's not a dick, and Phil Jackson was. So that's where a big difference on the sidelines right there.
Well, that was the 1 year Phil Jackson won his Coaching of the Year title. He's between him and Coach K. They have one Coach of the Year between the two of them.
That says something about how your peers feel about
it. Yes. Well, media members vote on it.
Oh, do they? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I was going to say something, and Brian, you just started off on something else. I have no idea what I was getting ready to say.
Well, look at, too, I'd have to look at their coaching staff again, but what's kind of been lost now, which was a big story at the beginning of the season, is Luke Walton.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
That's what it was, Luke Walton. That was the point I was going to make.
And there's a couple other former NBA head coaches that are assistants on that team. I'd have to look up the coaching roster, so to speak. So they've got a lot of good minds. Whereas Phil totally pawned off Tex Winter's triangle offense and said it was his own. And
I think that Luke Walton as young as he is, as inexperienced as he is, I think he gets a head coaching job next year.
Awesome head coaching.
He should be the coach of the Knicks. And I wouldn't wish that upon him, obviously. But they want to give
failure.
They want to give that to Kurt Rambis, and Rambis again. He's been a good assistant at different places. But Luke Walton was part of those championship teams with the Lakers.
Yep.
If you're Phil, and you have any sanity, which he doesn't seem to have much, but
he's actually not done that terrible of a job.
No, if you have any sanity, you hire the man that's undefeated as a coach. Luke Walton is undefeated as a head coach.
Yeah, it's true.
It was like Steve Kerr's second game back that they lost.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Warriors obviously had to beat the Spurs at home to continue this, and that's what they did. And it was crazy to get that their home record was as insane and still intact.
Do you know who popped champagne last night? Because they played last night, right? The 85-86 Celtics that went 41-1 at home. With Bird, McHale, and Parrish. They were drinking somewhere together. Larry could put the buds back. I think kind of like you. So,
like Peyton.
Yeah. So, I think that that was kind of like a Miami Dolphins moment last night.
Bit, yeah. But Brian, you said something. The Warriors have made history this season, or you said they're on the cusp of making history. They have already made history. They're the first team ever that they won't lose 2 games to the same team.
Well, I said they did make history.
Oh, back to back.
Can I make these points, Brian? Because you're saying everything along with me. They are the only team that they won't lose 2 games to the same team. They won't lose back-to-back games.
That's true, yeah.
They have the most road wins in a season in league history.
I think that makes them the road dogs, doesn't it?
It makes them the DOGG. But I mean, then you look at the Spurs home record. They were undefeated going into their second to last home game. That's just incredible to think about.
Mm-hmm.
It shows you the state of the league, though, right now, too. I mean, it's really top heavy. There's some great talent.
That's what the league always is, though.
Right, but I just don't. I think like there's only a few teams, whereas I felt like at one point the Western Conference had 5 or 6 teams that could win.
Yeah.
And now I feel like there's only 5 or 6 teams in the whole league that really could win it.
But generally speaking, if you look back, even comparing those Jordan years with the Bulls, it was always the same thing that there was top tier teams, then you had the tier below where you're somewhere between 500, and then you had those 3 or 4 truly awful teams, and that's kind of what this year falls into as well. But there are, would you say, 5 teams that could win the title?
I think you got Golden State, you got San Antonio, maybe Oklahoma City.
Even that's a stretch.
And that's a stretch.
That's why I said maybe
we're
5.
We're getting Cleveland, obviously from an Eastern.
I think Cleveland is the only team out of the East that even has a chance.
Toronto couldn't do it.
And then
not your C's.
No.
I would almost pick the Clippers.
I don't like the C's
I would pick the Clippers over the Thunder, to be honest.
I think they're
the Clippers are a good team, but there's a self-destruct in the Clippers.
Yes, there's
a Jordan Spieth moment in the Clippers any point in time during a game.
There's also a self-destruct moment with the Thunder as well, with Westbrook being your star. He's as talented as he is. At the end of games in crisis, he just implodes upon himself.
Right.
I think that there are legitimately 3 teams that can win this title. Obviously the Warriors, obviously the Spurs, and I guess you throw the Cavs in there.
With LeBron, you have to.
Even though I don't think that they will.
I don't either. I think it's Golden State, and I think Golden State runs through this, to be honest. I truly do, because they've been bored. And
they sweep the first 2 rounds, win the conference finals in 5 games, win the finals in 5.
And you know what's sad, too? Here we are, the last couple nights of the season or whatever, and usually there's always some 8th seed playoff like storylines, and all we have this year is Dallas, Utah, and Houston fighting it out for that last spot.
And it's like almost guaranteed that the 8th seed's going to have a losing record.
Yeah,
do they even deserve to be in the playoffs?
Well, there's talk about that. Should we, do a straight 16-team bracket and do the series the same way with the 7 gamers and stuff and play it out like that? I don't know if they'll ever do that.
It's a little weird to think about.
Yeah, the one team from the East that you could see winning the title would be the Cavs, as we said. And talking about LeBron taking a backseat to the Warriors, LeBron obviously was the best player in the world. I think Curry has passed him. Do you guys agree with that?
I only disagree on not statistically and from an excitement standpoint, just that they're two different players at two different positions.
They definitely have
so
completely
it's hard
different
to
games.
make that decision. But from a popularity standpoint, globally,
Popularity, it's no question.
I think it's Curry now. And so, but with Kobe still has that stature for at least another couple days. He
Yes,
can
as
hold
his
that
final
throne,
game is coming
know.
up. But the thing is LeBron, the Twitter game.
I think LeBron's still the best player in the league. I still think because yes, you're right.
I can't argue the point. Like,
Two completely different games, but you've got Steph Curry who's a threat to drop 50 on you every night. But then there's LeBron. He can still drop 50 on you, but he's going to pass out 10 assists, grab 10 boards.
Well, the real debate you can make between the two is who impacts the game more. Because it's so hard to, it's apples and oranges. Like, Curry does all these amazing things, and then you look at LeBron, who doesn't have the same supporting cast, but he impacts the game unbelievably, too. So that's probably one of the, you wouldn't get anywhere if you had the debate, but that would be a great debate to have.
And I honestly think LeBron has 2 more peak years left after this season. Because the way you can tell it is, remember when he was in the prime, when he was chasing people down from behind and just doing all those amazing blocks from behind?
Down in
you don't
South
see
Beach,
that anymore. He was doing it in Cleveland the first time around too.
A little bit towards the
anymore.
end before he left. Yeah,
and just it's all of the extra minutes. I mean, he came out obviously as an 18-year-old straight out of high school, and all those extra minutes. I mean, he's been in the finals every single year. All those minutes have got to add up, and then obviously he's 31 now. If numbers popping up on the top of my head.
What are you trying to say?
Those years are going to, in basketball, that's starting to get up there.
Human years, too.
As bad as this feels to me, I think LeBron going back to Cleveland was the worst decision he could have made.
Agreed. He went back to Cleveland for the wrong reasons. He went back to right the story, to right the wrong, and to not be challenged by Pat Riley because he wanted to control.
He wanted to win a championship by himself. And he's realized in this league, you can't.
And then there's a reason why they got rid of Wiggins so quickly, because he thought, I need to win now. I can't wait for Wiggins to develop over 3 or 4 years because the legs are going to be gone pretty soon.
I broke up with LeBron this year. I didn't let him know yet. I didn't know. I would tell him that I'm kind of seeing other players and enjoying it. I'd really, I used to love him. And even last year when he came back to Cleveland and I was kind of swept up in the excitement a little bit, watched some of their early games, I was like, yeah, LeBron, man, he's amazing, And now I'm just like, again, with the Twitter stuff, with the coaching stuff, with the stuff where and I don't mind him having some influence because, we know Jordan had influence.
Players make the influence on decisions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we know Bird, Magic all probably had some influence to some degree, whatever you could have in the 80s at that point in time. Things were different.
None.
But I don't know that he's taken on and become this persona and this thing that is beyond what he ever was before, and it's hard to describe it. But when you watch it on TV, you're kind of like, okay.
No one can challenge him. Do you know who could challenge him in Miami? Pat Riley. Pat Riley could look across the table.
It's still debatable if he could.
But there's no one in Cleveland who can.
No, nobody's willing to even try.
He won't be put.
They're so happy that LeBron's there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he won't be put into his place again until this summer in Rio, when all those guys fall in line on the Olympic team.
Under Coach K for his last time.
Yeah, and I think that'll be, that's when you see a LeBron that you enjoy.
I think this is LeBron's last Olympics.
Oh, I think it is. I think he said it, too, that it probably would be. But
which is too bad, because I would love to see Greg Popovich, just give it to LeBron once.
I don't know if he would, though. Pop's he's interesting. It'll be fun when he coaches that Team USA.
Coming up next, MLB opening weekend, Ross Stripling pulled over 100 pitches with the no-no. Was it the right call? And also a story I know you can't wait to talk about by a number of home runs.
A story by
story.
story.
Not even meant to be intended. I saw the shaking of the head and I thought
Brian.
It wasn't even intended. You're listening to Orange Pulp. You're listening to Orange Pulp, MLB opening weekend, and we'll just jump right into it. Trevor's story, Zach, I know you've been excited about this.
Here's a story about a lovely Trevor. He hit bombs all over Coors Field. I mean, come on. 7 homers in 6 games. Never been done before.
Mm-mm.
He's a rookie. He'd never played in the majors before. Talk about a way to start a career.
Definitely. And I mean, obviously, the law of averages, he's going to come back to earth.
He's on pace to hit 189 home runs.
Okay, so
he's on pace to have 327 RBIs.
I'll be nice. I'll put the over-under at 100.
Taking the over.
Well, it's fun for the Rockies. It's good because they probably weren't going to have a story all year unless it was for this guy.
Bad puns.
So, but, he started it out. Then they opened their season in Arizona.
Yeah. And
then he's continued on in Colorado.
Because Zach Greinke hadn't given up a 3-homer game since, 2007. And Trevor Story hit two homers off of.
I didn't check his spring to see if he had a really good spring, and this was
okay.
just carry over.
Yeah, it was nothing standout-ish.
Sometimes you get locked in, and obviously playing for Colorado, I mean, they've done some things there to change. There's still more home runs there than any place else, but who knows? Maybe he has one of those Brady Anderson years, we hope, minus the steroids, and he hits 40, and then it never happens again. He has his career year in his first year, and he hits 12 the rest of his life.
Well, that's what he averaged through 5 seasons in the minors, was 12 homers a year. So I think that's what sort of... What are you doing here, buddy?
Yeah.
I was going to say, does the PED question pop up?
I don't think that it pops up because you've got to continue to say he's playing half of his games in Colorado.
Right.
Now, the no still intact for Ross Stripling. What's your thought on this? I know you're a huge baseball guy. And
another rookie.
Yes, and a no is sacred in baseball. What's your feeling on that? Was it the right call?
No, it wasn't. In his first start, and he's pitching a no-hitter, yeah, sure, you have a pitch count on him, and I know you want to protect him. He may never have another start like that again.
What about the fact that he was starting to lose command? He had just walked a pitcher or walked a batter, and he was at 100 pitches.
Let him give up that hit.
Let
him give up that hit.
What about the fact that 2 years ago he had Tommy John surgery, which I know it's not the death sentence it was, but it's still major surgery.
He may never have it again. Let him pitch until he gives up that hit. That's just the way I feel about it.
Tim, I know you're in two minds on this because we've kind of already talked about this.
Yeah,
before,
we talked about this in our class, and I think if you're reporting this, 40 years ago, and this is a news story 40 years ago, even less than that probably, but it's a no-brainer. You leave the guy in the game.
I mean, 40 years ago,
you just pitched.
Dave Roberts would have said, "Oh yeah, he's fine."
Yeah, but I think I'm not saying
then they'd throw 900 pitches in a game, and
yeah, and then they'd have Tommy John
They didn't
after
have
the
any
900
bullpen,
pitches. Yeah. But I think that in the way the game is played now, which is not one that I'm always excited about, I think it's the right move only because of that. As a fan, I'm saying leave the guy in, but I'm saying from a baseball standpoint, and as I said, the metrics and the innings pitched and the pitches thrown and all those things, I think we're going to see less and less no-hitters unless it's coming from maybe an ace or a fluky situation where it's a call-up or a guy, is under that 100 pitch limit. But on the regular, I think you're going to start seeing guys get pulled 6th, 7th inning because they're paying these bullpen guys so much money and they got to get appearances and all this other stuff. Way too much playing into it for a manager right now.
I hate these combined no-hitters because I'm
Yes,
does that really count?
No. My feeling is the right decision was made. Tommy John surgery a couple years ago, so you got that. He's a rookie. You're hoping that he has plenty of years ahead. You've got the rest of the season alone. Then you got to start messing with starting pitching, dealing with that. You still have 5 outs to go, so you still have all of that. He was high. He was the only reason why he didn't get cracked for a hit.
He was high?
The slider high.
Okay, good.
The slider was just missing the strike zone completely, and the no is, yes, it's still a big event in baseball, but it's happening with far more regularity than it used to, with PEDs mostly out of the game, with pitchers having to learn against PEDs, and now that that's out, the batting's going down, all all the information, all the skill, all the top level prospects going out and pitching learning at a younger age. All of those things add up to more no hitters. And so it's not as big of an event as it is. And don't get me wrong, it's still something big, but it's not nearly as big as it used to be.
I wouldn't still get these alerts on my phone from ESPN.
Yes.
Somebody has a no-hitter through 6 innings.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's not meaningful. I'm just saying it's not as big as it once was. And
I agree to disagree on that one because I think it's still just as big.
I think it still has value, but I think it's been diminished than what it used to be. And you're trying to win the game, and I know it didn't work out because obviously they lost in extras, but I think in this place, hindsight is 20/20. I think going throughout, knowing what you know, it was the right decision to pull him in order to give you the best chance of winning. This is Orange Pulp. Up next, Zach zeroing in, look back on WrestleMania, Tim's takes, and the BA moment. This is Orange Pulp. Welcome back to the action here on Orange Pulp, and the reason why I say action is because I overlooked something on the rundown, so we're going to have to go and double back and take care of the NHL playoffs. So your playoff preview. Zach, I'll let you start. Just fun rundown of all the teams. Obviously, we know the Capitals have been great all year. The Bruins have fallen off completely, and a lot of action in between the two. The marquee team you always think of is the Chicago Blackhawks. What kind of chance and what stands out to you as your playoff preview?
Well, let's just go through and talk about what the just matchups are. You got the Florida Panthers and the New York Islanders, the Lightning and the Red Wings, which is weird for me still, even though it's been a couple of years since the Red Wings moved to the Eastern Conference. Still weird for me.
It is still weird, yes.
You've got the Capitals in there going against the Flyers, and you've got the Penguins and the Rangers. So I mean, the Eastern Conference was solid. It was solid from top to the middle of the pack. I'm not going to say bottom because Toronto was god awful. Because Toronto was god awful.
First time in years
since 69-70
that a Canadian team has not made the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
What happened to Montreal?
I don't know. That's really mystifying because I'm thinking back to the Winter Classic when they played the Bruins outdoors at Foxborough, and that was like for the division.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, I think some injuries. There was even talk about trading PK Subban, and I was like, are you freaking serious? I mean, this guy, again, I'm a Bruins fan, but you got to respect, players on the other side. And he's like one of the best guys in the league, probably top 3 in the league. And how they would even think there's something going on there. I don't know what it is, but.
And then out west, you've got Anaheim and Nashville, Los Angeles and San Jose, a California matchup there. Dallas and Minnesota, and St. Louis and Chicago.
Obviously, Chicago we can delve into in a little bit, but your Kings lost not that long ago, and a very, very good team. Could you see them making a run?
The Kings?
Yes.
You still have to say that they're one of the favorites to win just because they know how to win.
And then for Chicago, Patrick Kane, obviously his off the ice beginning of the season, everything that went into that clearly had no impact with him on the ice, having probably his best season. And Chicago looks like they could easily win another Stanley Cup.
Well, I think that blew over quick, after the proceedings were done and they figured out what they needed to. But, that Chicago team is certainly more than Patrick Kane. I mean, they are ridiculously stacked.
They're loaded from top to bottom.
They are. Jonathan Taves. Trying to think of a couple other guys that I'm aware of on that team.
They are the NBA team. They are the NHL equivalent of the Thunder, except for they actually won. Like what the Thunder thought when they got there to the finals at such a young age. The Blackhawks did it, and they have just kept repeatedly winning titles.
Yeah, I'm looking at the roster now, trying to remember names, because if you don't follow it frequently, you're not seeing it. And you're seeing Marian Hossa, Richard Panik, Duncan Keith, another great Canadian hockey player. I mean, they are loaded in so many different places.
Awesome
and if
stuff.
Corey Crawford gets hot, and I have bad memories of the Blackhawks from that one Stanley Cup a couple years back when they beat the Bruins in the last couple seconds. But if he gets hot, he's one of those top goalies in the NHL. So you've got to always put Chicago in your discussion, even though it seems like the California teams are the teams that are getting the great mentions, going into the playoffs. So
A team of yours, Zach, has made the playoffs.
A team of mine?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Didn't you put them as the Florida Panthers?
what do you mean?
What?
Florida and wasn't Tim making the joke of you adapting the Panther team, if I remember correctly? Maybe this is a thread that I'm misremembering or something. Because
You
clearly,
being Andy Pettit right now, because I don't know where you're going with this.
apparently, maybe I just dreamed it or something, because I remember a conversation
I don't
about
remember
Florida.
this at all.
Never mind then.
Because, I mean, as a Hurricanes fan...
Yes, your team, the Hurricane, is close to you, but is...
And, my Canes were not far from making the playoffs.
No, they really weren't. As I look at it here, they were two spots out, really.
Yeah.
It's not a bad season. I'll tell you, though, that one of the things... This could go a couple ways this playoffs this year from a rating standpoint. With no Canadian teams in, it's obviously going to hurt. But they love the sport up there, so I'm sure
Yes,
they're going to
they're
still
still
watch it
gonna
on television. But when you don't have the Canadian teams, you really have to make sure that you get the original six in, or at least a good chunk of them. But again, having the Bruins and the Canadians out really kind of impacts a lot of things from a fan base standpoint. Even New Jersey, Buffalo's been really bad lately, and that's great.
Buffalo loves their hockey.
But
they're
but the thing, we kind of talked earlier about there being only so many NBA teams that could win the finals. You go to hockey year in and year out, it's always the usual suspects. Like, it doesn't matter what conference Detroit is in, they're in it. The Flyers, I don't think they were in last year, but they're usually always in. The Caps are in. The Penguins are in. Now the Rangers are back to being a great team. And I know their matchups are a little bit different. It's not an 8-seeded bracket. I think they even reseed in the NHL, possibly too, in that second round. But you have to play a team in your division and get out of your division first. So I think Florida and the Islanders might actually be in the same division. I think there's only 2 divisions in hockey, like Metropolitan, at least on the East Coast, Metropolitan and Atlantic.
No, there's still 3.
Oh, there's 3 divisions. Okay. But, there's a chance that the Islanders could play the Rangers in one of the rounds of the playoffs. I mean, wouldn't that be something? That'd be amazing for New York,
series.
Especially with the Isles in Brooklyn now. Be a total, huge buzz in the city for that.
The second season is one of the most fun things to watch. NHL playoffs is action-packed, and it's just entertaining to no end. Now, who do you see winning it all?
I mean, I would say that I'd love to go with Washington. Not really love to go, but I mean, they were so much better than everybody else. But then the Capitals have a couple of things going against them. They can't win in the playoffs, and they won the President's Trophy.
It's like a 50-50 indicator, and when
I
they
read
get that,
this since 83, 84, when it was instituted as the President's Trophy. 8 teams that won the Stanley Cup.
And don't touch it on that last game of the season when they give it to you too.
Yeah.
So,
Tim?
actually,
you never.
I never gave a pick.
Washington.
I'm gonna go a Western Conference team. It's either gonna be the Blackhawks or the Kings.
There's a lot of good teams here. A lot of good teams. First, I'll give you the matchup. I think Tampa Bay gets in. I just got this good feeling about Tampa Bay, the way they played the last few years. And I think they're going to play...
No Syracuse connection to that?
No, not at all, really. Although there is a Syracuse connection in the sense of the crunch, because so many crunch players have come up.
Well,
I thought you meant like...
they're
but I thought you meant like a local thing. Like I was thinking, they're here, so I'll root for them. But and I think they play the Blues. I think this is the year for the Blues.
The Blues, okay.
And I'm gonna have the Blues over the Lightning in the Stanley Cup, and it'll go 7 games, of course. They would go 8 games if they could try. So,
the Stanley Cup literally every year goes 7 games.
Yeah,
except for the one year that it could have gone 7, but I think they won in 5. The Blackhawks won in 5 but every game basically went to overtime.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
But I'm going to take the Blackhawks to win it all. It's a safe, chalky pick, but
Greatness.
they're just fun to watch. And the NHL playoffs is just an entertaining time. And it's sad that such a great sport in person just doesn't transfer so well to TV, and that's kind of what hurts the sport.
I will say this, though, a small tidbit for those hockey listeners out there, which there aren't any, but if there were, they're actually going to do like a kind of like the NCAA tournament thing this year with it being on multiple networks. The NBC family of networks, USA is going to start doing games. I think they throw some
They started
on
throwing soccer on
MS,
USA.
NBC. Yeah, so I think just about every game will be televised now, and hockey fans will love it.
You're listening to Orange Pulp. Now, officially coming up next, Zach zeroing in, Tim's takes, and the BA moment. This is Orange Pulp. Welcome back to Orange Pulp for our final segment. Zach, WrestleMania, wrestling is your baby. Take it away.
Which, just as you say that, a debut I've been waiting for in the WWE apparently just happened tonight as Raw is going on. Carl Anderson and Luke Doc Gallows debuted on Monday Night Raw. The Bullet Club is in WWE.
Are they, this is just maybe a stupid question, but are they NXT or...
New
They
Japan.
debuted on Monday Night Raw.
But
where they came from- it was New Japan, right?
They came from New Japan Pro Wrestling. The Bullet Club has arrived, and I'm doing the Too Sweet symbol right now, which is exactly the same as my NC State Wolfpack.
Yeah.
But that came from the NWO back in 1996 when it was all Too Sweet.
So what does this mean now? AJ Styles, is there going to be any linkage here?
They
or?
debuted in AJ Styles versus Sami Zayn.
They
AJ
came down to
Styles?
help
AJ
him?
Styles. So Finn Balor, real quick history lesson here. Finn Balor in NXT was the original leader of the Bullet Club in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He signs with the WWE. His last night, AJ Styles debuts in New Japan, takes over as the Gaijin leader, meaning white man. Basically, it translates to foreigner. But he becomes the leader of the Bullet Club. And then back in late December, early January, no, it was in December, that AJ Styles, Carl Anderson, Doc Gallows, the main group of the Bullet Club, signed with WWE. Everybody thought, okay, there's a chance that they make the debut at WrestleMania. Of course, that didn't happen. And for some reason, 2 weeks after WrestleMania, they debut, which is a little weird. But, yeah. So,
timing is weird on everything that
Timing is
WWE
weird.
is doing right now.
but if we're going to do my WrestleMania review, good matches, awful booking. Because I watch every match and I say, oh, that was really entertaining. The wrong person won.
Jericho, AJ Styles.
Jericho, AJ Styles just jumps off the page. Because, I mean, it was an incredible match to watch. But there's no reason that Chris Jericho should have won that. It's a big... Vince hates,
Jericho should
it's
have
a big
his...
Vince hates TNA, and we're going to bury all of their talent. But now AJ Styles is the number one contender for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. So, what?
So Shane O'Mac is making waves.
That was an incredible match. Shane O'Mac versus The Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell. I said when they announced that was the match, Shane better jump off of it.
We all thought it was going to happen.
You knew he had to. Looked like he killed himself. Couldn't walk out.
How hurt was he, do you think? There's
I don't
got
know.
to be some hurt in that because that thing breaks, but it's still
It's
it's
also-
a thin construction.
That, and also you see when they try to bounce the camera and everything else, but there was one angle where you could see the mattress.
Yeah, but
there was a mattress
Yeah, there was a
in there.
match, but still,
Yeah. Oh, you're still
falling
hurting.
25 feet.
You're still
Yeah.
hurting.
Yeah, so I mean that hurts. And then
You fall down, and go boom.
I mean, you saw him jump when he fell. The Intercontinental Championship ladder match was really entertaining.
I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
Ladder matches, they're a spectacle.
It was a good way to start it.
It was a good way to start it.
But you can't do
But-
it a third time.
You can't do it a third time in a row, no. Third year in a row. There was no reason for Zack Ryder to win the IC title.
Woo, woo, woo.
You know it.
I was so close with my off the ridiculous mark prediction from the 7. I just didn't go off the beaten path enough. I only went Dolph Ziggler off. I didn't realize I had to go even further off the map.
Yeah, there was no reason he should have won that. Should have stayed on Kevin Owens or gone to Sami Zayn. Apparently they said that feud does not need the Intercontinental Championship. And then the main event, Triple H versus Roman Reigns, was boring.
Yes.
There's no other way to put it. It was a boring match.
They try to make it long, though, like the old WrestleManias where you like had to earn the title and it went on forever, so they kind of did that. But
yeah. In my opinion, the match of the night was the women's triple threat match.
It was good.
Charlotte versus Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch. Again, the wrong person won. Should have been Sasha Banks or Becky Lynch's coronation as the top babyface of the women's division instead of, woo, Charlotte retains because Ric Flair interfered.
even though you're zeroing in, what was my favorite moment if you're zeroing in?
What
Should
was
be pretty predictable.
What was your favorite moment?
Yeah.
When The Rock came out with his flamethrower?
Yeah. Well, no, not that, but just the presence of The Rock. And then Cena, you know, I need those stars.
It was useless.
It was useless, but that's where I got excited.
It was fun.
I knew it was
there
bad.
were so many better ways that you could have used The Rock instead of a 6-second match against Eric Rowan.
My question, kudos to The Rock, because he made The Undertaker's entrance look short. It did take forever.
Undertaker's entrance is supposed to be the longest entrance in WrestleMania.
Yes.
And so that just makes me mad. And I mean, I was reading something online last week that said, has The Rock become boring?
I don't know, but
yes.
I think that was like a Raw skit.
It was.
When
it was
he
not
doing his thing, and
WrestleMania
then
worthy.
Here come the Wyatts. It was just such a Raw skit. It wasn't.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a cool way to get John Cena on the show to help him out.
It was fun, and then Cena he is not back to Raw.
He's not physically cleared.
So so it got him out there where he could do something but not have to worry about anything.
And I mean, and then I'm going to look at this. Somebody that's not born yet, 30 years from now, is going to be engrossed in this, looking back, my kids, looking back at old WrestleManias and say, The Rock versus Eric Rowan? What? Oh, it was 6 seconds. Okay.
They're breaking records tonight!
Broke records, shortest WrestleMania match ever. So yeah, that's Zach zeroing in on a good wrestling-wise WrestleMania. Really, really poor decisions made by the WWE, though.
And you know what? I'm going to give you Raw anyway.
What?
The first Monday Night Raw. You can have it.
Oh, it was okay.
Yeah.
It was okay.
But I mean, you can have Raw anyway with Shane O'Mac.
Yeah, it was
the whole
weird.
storyline of the Undertaker fight is, oh, you lost, so you don't get Raw. Okay, I'm going to give you Raw anyway.
Yeah, it was really weird, and it just seemed like the next night they just undid stuff.
Here comes the money.
Yeah, I'm in a bad place with pro wrestling right now. Hopefully, with the Bullet Club, that got me really excited. So we'll hope that they can't mess them up too much.
Now, Tim's takes.
Mine's a quick one, actually.
It's hard to believe.
It's a tough day for people in Utica. It's a national story that has been all over everything. But Will Smith was shot and killed after a car accident, and I didn't really know Will personally, but we did play basketball against each other for 3 or 4 years. I actually wasn't a post player, and I ended up having to guard him. Rest your soul, Will. You didn't work too hard to grab rebounds because I found a way to box you out, even though you were that much bigger than me all the time. I was like a three man trying to box out a 5-man, but he.
How tall was he? Like 6'8"?
He wasn't 6'8", but he probably was a good 6'4", 6'5" by the time he finished. And I would say even when he was playing modified 7th and 8th grade level, he was probably pushing 200 pounds at that point. Like not even really fat, just like big dude. But I can't name the other names because I'm blanking right now. But Utica's high school proctor has had some NFL players come through over the last probably 15, 20 years. But Will was the one that stood out, wins the national championship at Ohio State, wins a Super Bowl with the New Orleans Saints, has a great career with them. Obviously, some things happened with the Bounty Gate, and I think he might have even had a steroid situation with 4 games
Yeah.
he was suspended or something. But just a tough day. There's been some great baseball players that have come out of the Utica area, but this was the football player, and I know he always gave back. He actually, I think his Will Smith Foundation event was like upcoming this week. He was supposed to come back to Utica to have that event, and now he's passed, so obviously that's going to happen under other circumstances and conditions. So I just wish the best for his family, recovery for his wife, who also was injured in the altercation as well. I don't want to speculate motives and things, although I've read a few extra stuff, but prayers to the Smith family. So.
And that was Tim Takes. And now the BA moment.
BA moment.
Mine's also going to be short. It's scheduling. And it's late night and the West Coast and Warriors going for breaking the record. Tip starts for 10:30. Kobe's final game, same time, 10:30. One's on ESPN, one's on ESPN2. Could we just move them up a bit? And I know it's selfish as the East Coast biased if you want to go, or East, but that's such a late start. And I would have loved to have been able to watch it, but with scheduling and everything in the early wake up, there's no way I'm going to be able to stay up that late. Like, even if I want to, which I do, but there's no way I can go through everything and see them try to break the record, see Kobe's final game.
Where is Kobe's final game? Is it at home? Is it a home game? Or is it?
That I do not know.
Yeah, maybe there could have been a way to stagger that a little bit.
It's not even necessarily them starting at the same time, which is a little annoying, but you can flip back and forth, different, one on the computer, one on the TV if you want to do that, whatever it may be. But it's the fact that the 10:30 start is, yes, I get that they're at a different time zone, but it's just so brutal that the late, think the national championship game starting after 9.
Well, that's just ridiculous because there's
so
nothing
late.
else it's competing with that an 8 whatever start was more practical for that.
And it's just those late games, and games just seem to be getting later and later. And apparently I'm getting old because I want to go to bed earlier and earlier, but also people have to work the next day. You have school for us. It's just quite annoying that you have to either go through the next day groggy or and sleep deprived rather than actually a game just starting at a more realistic time.
Put on your big boy pants and deal with it.
Okay, maybe. But
DVR it. Rewatch it.
Well,
Brian, you know how to rewatch stuff.
Yes, I do, but I'd rather watch it live at a reasonable hour. This is
Arizona
just me being
Cardinals
selfish.
playoff game 7 times, right? In one
I
shape
had
or
done
form.
I had done a miscount. It was actually 6. We had went through it again,
Okay.
but
Still about 5 times too many.
it happens. That's me. I'm a dork. We get it. This is Orange Pulp with Zach Francis, Tim Ferguson. I'm Brian Armstrong. Thanks for listening. We'll try to do better next time on the next Orange Pulp.